this is the best time to remake yourself because you may be on hiatus. Business may be closed down purposefully or required. And why not? You can kind of come out that phoenix.
I'm Colin.
And I'm Megan.
And this is
Pet Sitter Confessional, an open and honest discussion about life as a pet sitter.
When I say the word rebranding, what kind of emotions or thoughts does that evoke? Expensive, costly, time-consuming, arduous. Does it have to be? Today, Amber from Atta Boy Animal Care shares her story on how and why she decided it was time for her to rebrand. She discusses some of the technicalities about it, how she chose which process to go through, and shares with us just how little it actually cost her at the end. So if you've been thinking that it's time to refresh your logo or change the colors that you have for your business, this episode is for you. Amber breaks it all down and shares some of the pointers to look out for and consider along the way. If you've been on the hunt for some online educational courses, check out protrainings.com, especially their pet first aid and CPR class. Use the code CPR-PetSitterConfessional at checkout for 10% off any of their courses. Now let's get started.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amber Van Denzen. And as he said, I own Atta Boy Animal Care located in Central Florida. We opened in December of 2013 after I had been a veterinary technician for quite some time and decided that those nights, weekends, and holidays didn't quite flex with my future schedule of the family style that I wanted. So I was very excited to start this journey of pet care after a friend of mine also had a pet care industry company that she started not a few years later, when she also was a vet tech and wasn't interested in that industry as much anymore. So I got inspired by that. On top of also pet sitting unofficially when I was in high school, as well as one of my first jobs. I started Amber's Job Services, which kind of encompassed pet sitting and babysitting and kind of everything in between, which is where I first got some of my first clients back in the day as well. So.
Wow, so you've been in business for since 2013?
Correct.
Wow. What has it been like experiencing the COVID pandemic in the last couple months for you?
I would say in the past couple months, obviously, as 7 years in, obviously it's the slowest time, I would say, besides the very early months of starting the company. And kind of a learning curve, obviously. This is not a realm that we ever thought to prepare for, not anything that's in any standard operating procedure that we had planned out, as well as, kind of dealing with having staff, independent contractors specifically, and what that looked like for not only me and the business financially, but for our staff as well.
So obviously we brought you on to talk about rebranding. What initiated that whole process for you?
Sure. In about 5 years in, we kind of started noticing that our original design that we had created when I first started, which we got from a graphic design student, a friend of a friend recommendation, and we noticed it was kind of getting kind of an antique old vibe. You could definitely tell it was not a modern graphic. It wasn't as crisp and clean as what is expected of today, and what really is interesting to a client's eye and really aesthetically pleasing. So we decided to start looking into rebranding by specifically getting a new logo and design and colors, even right around year 5. And in year 6, we definitely decided to move forward with that process. So our original design, which flowed with our original slogan, which was Atta Boy Animal Care, Pet Sitting and Dog Walking. Our slogan was, "We are the key to your pet's comfort and care." And then on our design of our logo was a antique skeleton key with pet bodies in each part of the key on the bust end of that. And then on the head of the key was what looked like partially a barn and a business like cityscape at the same time. So it kind of encompassed pets and homes, and that key obviously being someone's home. And it was very similar to many real estate kind of agency logos to a degree as well. And that was just one of our first logos that we created. And then we kind of decided that wasn't the vibe that we were looking for. That wasn't the aesthetic appeal that we were looking for. And we realized, we had an antique skeleton key and we looked antique. So we decided we needed to move forward, and rebrand, which was a very scary thought process because you put all this time and effort for recognition of your brand. That logo was on our website, was on printed magnets on our cars, was on every printed item we had, a brochure, business cards, even like baggies as well. So the financial piece associated with that and cost associated with that kind of scared me. But moving forward and doing a bunch of research, we decided to move forward with that. And when we decided to do that, I kind of looked at a couple things. I really ideally wanted to stay local, like most of my business. I wanted to kind of do a mom and pop of some sort locally. And then I decided against that, which is not common for me. But I decided against that because I didn't want to be stuck in a hole with one graphic designer and one person's thought process when creating a new logo. I really wanted a multifaceted, multidimensional, larger like world concept option with a ton of different brains kind of giving us their thoughts and ideas and designs ultimately for our branding. So we decided to do a crowdsourced company that we ended up using, a company called Design Crowd. There's another company called Fiverr that's very similar to that, and putting out our logo idea and starting that process with a crowdsourced option to get that as many options, as many ideas as possible. So we went that route when we first started rebranding.
Now, you mentioned for you, the cue was you felt like the brand was starting to feel a little old.
Yes.
Are there any other signs that it may be time to rebrand? If someone's listening to this and they may have had these inklings, but I was wondering if you had any advice for somebody who these things should tell you maybe it's time to move forward and rebrand.
Yeah, sure. So one, we weren't getting as many clientele in. That's a huge key point. We noticed that something not much has changed, but we weren't, if we had other options, there was other companies and other competition. And when looking at the other competition locally, what type of vibe and what type of feel did that initial interaction, which is usually the marketing aspect, which is usually their logo, and what kind of feeling did that give us? And we looked at theirs and we looked at ours and we said, what, we look like the grandma older aspect of that, not in the sense of, do you trust us? Are we modern? And we really wanted to hit clientele, especially millennial type personas and persons that have a ton of pets. And it just didn't have that happy, exciting, fun vibe that we really were looking for. So, and we saw that need and we saw the lack of clientele coming in. And also when we were using that logo for printed materials and stuff, the new programs and software weren't appreciating the quality of that JPEG or PNG design that we had. So we know that also was causing a difficulty on our end to use our logo as well.
Those are great indicators of when the technology is starting to throw fits of, this isn't working. And whenever your clientele of, are you targeting people who want to go to antique malls or not? Right. Those are very good indicators then.
Yeah. Our typical, looking at what type of design we wanted, we looked at who we were marketing to, because that rebrand is a huge marketing aspect as well. So we knew our typical clientele was a female between 30 and 60 years old. And it was either that younger family that was going on family vacations or those empty nest, type persons that their families have come and gone and they're kind of vacationing with their spouses at this point in time. So we kind of had the younger end and the older end that we wanted to make sure that we caught their attention. And by doing what we did, by changing colors, by changing vibe, by changing the logo design as a whole, and then using a certain type of professional, we were able to get the logo that we really felt made that difference of ultimately attracting more customers and being usable in 2020 now. We did it last year when we finally ended up finalizing our brand early 2019. We've been using it for about a year and a half now. And we found that is pretty much we went from 200 people liking our Facebook page or so last year to over close to 500 this year. We found that upon hiring, when we were putting out hiring ads with our logo, we were getting more people wanting to apply because that vibe of that logo really brought and attracted attention to the right personas that we wanted working for our clients, for our team rather, as well. So that overall just whole compass of what our company embodied, that logo really gave that to us. So, we went from a dark plum color and a dark mustard yellow to a bright purple and a very bright yellow. Our logo went from a key with some pet side profile designs to a very happy puppy picture integrated into our name. And we ended up having over 107 submittals of logo designs on our design crowd from over 45 different designers from around the world. So we just had so many looks and so many thought processes and so many things that I didn't think of, because when it's your company and you're trying to think of a design option, you're kind of in a box. You've seen your company, you've seen your logo thousands of times, and you really need that outside look and that outside opinion to maybe move towards the direction that you want your company to move towards. And a lot of the designs we got, probably easily over 50%, were very generic. If you can think of that generic pet care, whether it's a veterinarian or a pet sitter or a groomer, whether it has a heart in it or, a cat and dog side profile or hands making a heart, the mass of 5 different types of species of animals kind of jumping on top of each other. No offense to anyone that has a logo like that at all. If it works for you, it works for you ultimately. But we wanted to be a little bit different ultimately. Sure. And so about half of those had that typical vibe, I would say, that you would find at most veterinary clinics, most medicinal type concepts, and some earlier companies that haven't rebranded particularly. And ultimately, the design that we chose was brighter, it was fresher, it was happy. We wanted a logo that encompassed our name into the design itself. There's many different types of logo types that you can choose from. Definitely do your research on what you think attracts you the most, whether it's a design logo that is more of a badged style, like if you think of UPS, or more of one that has a real life type animal creature on it. So think like the World Wildlife Federation that has a panda that's a clear, obvious panda with the WWF under it, or more the logos that are more like a Nike logo that's a swoop that it's not exactly a shoe, obviously, but you still recognize Nike for their swoop. And then it came down to, or you want text only logos, kind of like the Coca-Cola logo or Tiffany & Co. And then ultimately a combination of the two where your logo, text, and your wording is kind of created into one. So the B of our Atta Boy is actually part of the puppy's face. So it's kind of a combo effort, which is what we wanted. We wanted it all in one. And that's what we ended up getting. And the designer we ended up using was actually from India. And it was love at first sight when we saw it out of the 100 plus logo designs we had. But the cool thing with using a crowdsource site is the one we ended up using actually had a voting option too. We could share it to our clients to get them involved with the process and get them excited. They could vote on their favorite ones. We shared it with local business professionals to get it out in the community. We shared it with friends and family as well. And there was probably a top 2 that we pushed back and forth on. One was more of like an outdoorsy nature kind of vibe, had an oak tree going on and a sunset because, Florida. Yep. And then we had this happy puppy design. And I would say, some people really hated that puppy and some people really loved that puppy. But ultimately we moved with the puppy design and we were able to edit it with the designers specifically, move a little this, change a little that, change a font here or there. And then for under $300 is what it ended up costing us out the door for this logo design. And we got all the professional files, which is huge as well. So not just a JPEG not just a PDF, not just a Word document that someone may have created or a publisher document, but a JPEG, a PNG, and then some other fancy ones like an SVG, I think is what it is, that I can't even open in my typical computer. Those are for graphic design type programs that give you the best quality for print type items that you may want. So we use that logo for creating window decals. And, that's what the type of files that those graphic designers wanted, that gave the best, most crisp lines for printing purposes on larger scale items as well. And that was a huge calling for us, that we were able to have all of those things encompassed and editable, and we could give those to, in the future, other graphic designers if it needed to be edited in the future or changed around. It's still editable in the future as well, which was a huge thing for us to not just think about now, but in the future, using our the money that we used and using it to the best of its abilities as long as possible.
I'd hope by now, listening through that process and everything that Amber went through, that rebranding is not just a few ticks of a box. And this was a whole holistic approach to a market research, how to target them, building that into everything they do. So Amber, could you tell us how you would define rebranding as a business?
Rebranding as a business, I think it's personal to a degree, because this is your company that you pulled up. But rebranding is ultimately taking what is already there and changing it for your current market, for your current clientele, to make sure whatever you are projecting as a company, whether it's your values, your mission statement, your slogan, and the quality of care that you're providing, and being able to show that in a couple of seconds. Ultimately, that first thing that most clients see is your logo. And what vibes do you want them to have? What feelings and emotions do you want that to emit to them in those split seconds that their eye is looking at that logo and is going to their brain to give some type of emotion? What emotion do you want them to give? So that rebrand is really making sure whatever you want as your business to be successful and to show to the community is shown in a visual presentation.
Wow. Yes. 100%. I love that. I love that.
Too serious, huh?
No. And because rebranding is a very serious topic. It is, because it's the image of your company that in what you want to project. And you hit it right on the head of going, it's not immediately deleting everything that you are or what you do. It's looking for the best and bringing that together, and now you have to help find a way to communicate that to people without speaking a single word. And the logo and the design of your website and all of your printed materials, all of that goes into that. Whether we like to admit it or not, people do judge books by their cover.
Absolutely. That's a great way to say that. Oh my gosh, that's exactly it. Yes.
and we like to tell ourselves that they don't, but they do. And we do it, kind of not even thinking about it most of the time. And so really taking the time and putting in that forethought, and just love that, thinking through your mission statement, and does this logo match your mission statement? Does it match the quality of care that you're providing? What does it project to people around you, and what does it communicate? So it's there's so much tied into that. Exactly.
And ultimately it worked for us. Like I said, we saw in a year, we saw our social media double. We saw our hiring intake, easily double or triple the amount of income or people that are even applying, because people want to work for companies that give them the same vibes as well, the same happiness, the same excitement, the same passion. And if you look older and boring and not modern and not exciting, what does that show for your company as a whole? My company, we use tech, we're tech savvy. We have the great photo quality for our clients. We have ease of use, and we have happiness and perky and bubbly characters that work for our company. That when you want a happy puppy, you have to have a happy human. And our slogan that we also changed as well, not just the logo. We wanted to make sure that slogan matched it. And obviously our previous slogan was, we are the key to your pet's comfort and care. And we decided to make it short and sweet and exactly what we wanted our clients to feel. And that's exactly this. We said, happy pets, happy people. Yeah, that's what it is, with an exclamation mark at the end, because our name also has an exclamation mark in it. So we wanted to tie that in. So we not only changed our logo, but we changed our slogan. We, brightened our colors and made it just a little bit more modern. And we are still attracting that older age bracket just fine. And we are now attracting that younger age bracket as well. That's something I can put on an Instagram or a TikTok or a YouTube, and it just be as relevant and exciting for that younger crowd of clientele as well.
What did this rebranding process do to your and your team's perspective on the company and the outlook that you had?
This past year, and I would say 2 years, has been a big growth time for us as a business. The first few years, I was a solo pet sitter. It was just me doing my thing. And then I had a human baby and I said, I can't do that by myself so much anymore. And that's when I kind of first started hiring on my first independent contractor. And then we ended up adopting our son from foster care the year after. And I had to step back significantly due to that whole process and the medical needs. And for our son, Tristan, who's now 7, and we have a daughter who's now 4. And so when that happened, I had just a couple of independent contractors, because one, it was extremely hard to hire and find what worked, and just attracting the right person to apply for our company. So that changed drastically, because right around that time is when I started the rebrand process. And we found again that we were able to have more staff apply. So we had the better pick of the litter, ultimately, no animal pun intended. And, so that helped significantly as well, because the people that we were bringing in were the happier, excitable, really passionate about the company. Our sitters are our number one recommenders, besides our current clientele. And it's because they have a passion for our company. They know what good work they do. We know what the good work we expect. And we know the excitement and happiness that our staff are able to provide those animals while their pets are away. So we just, again, that happier, excited, lovable, but professional vibe was all there.
And all because you changed some colors in a logo. I mean, that process really, it sounds.
I never would have, if you told me that, I would have never believed you. If you said, you know what, you need to change your logo and your colors and it'll make all the difference, I would have said some adult words. But which most of my staff is aware that I use those adult words quite frequently, but in a good way. But I said, sure. No way possible. But it really was. It was, we already had tech on board. We already had social media on board. We already had the same exact quality of service that we are servicing now as we did a handful of years ago. But now we, again, double our, social media, double the amount of clients we have, our revenue 2.5 times, increased, in a year. So when you see that and you look at, okay, what are we doing differently? It's really just that first initial perspective, that passion, that happiness, that vibe that the clients can trust to know that's what you're going to give them and their pets while they're away. And that was the biggest thing to that. So, and it was shocking. But it did its job, and it was definitely worth the less than $300 investment that we ended up doing it for.
Yeah. And I want to touch on that, because when as soon as you start throwing out the words of graphic designer and
scary,
design
right?
process, people start seeing, okay, how many zeros? Tell me when to stop. And you went through, and you mentioned it, but go ahead and mention again what site you went through to get that crowdsourced.
Sure. So we did Design Crowd. And the first thing I recommend with anything, if you use a crowdsourced website like Design Crowd, there's another one that I know others have used called Fiverr, is that get on their email lists. Design Crowd, I know, emails out promo codes all the time, and not like 10%. They're like much more significant, because they charge you for a posting fee, and that varies for how long you want your post to be on. And then they charge the fee that will actually be paying the graphic designer. So depending on your budget and depending on how many graphic designers that you may want to use, like if you have one graphic designer in mind, you can choose that and it's a lower cost versus opening it up to a broader spectrum. So they have different packages and stuff. So you just kind of have to look at what best suits your financials and what you want from it ultimately. And that's kind of different. Same thing with Fiverr. I think Fiverr comes from, you can like charge $5 or something, which you're going to get probably quite low quality product potentially, but I don't know. I didn't use it, but yeah, so we used that. And, going through that process, I didn't know anyone else that ever used it. It was a random Google find. And, their marketing and videos sold me on it. It's like a money back guarantee. If you don't find somebody that submits a logo that you like, you get back the graphic design fee, not the posting fee, which is like $80 when I did it again 2 years ago. But the other money that would go to the graphic designer, since you didn't pay anyone, they'll give it back to you. So that's a nice guarantee to have, as well as if I don't like it, I get most of my money back ultimately.
Yeah.
Huge. Versus some local graphic designers were way more than that. And again, it goes back to, okay, you can say this is what I want. They're going to give you a few options, and if you don't like it, you still have to pay them significantly. And it's way more than what I ended up investing in this rebrand for that. Now, this doesn't include the cost of the fact that I did have to throw away a ton of old branded items. I had an old banner, I had business cards and brochures and printed bags and things like that. All of that I couldn't use anymore successfully. So all that loss of that and having to reinvest in those core items, new business cards, new brochures, new banner, things like that, that did cost significantly as well. I would say probably about, depending on how much you buy of each item, obviously, we tend to use Vistaprint for our printing, and even a local graphic designer that we use to create our graphics for our window clings and stuff on our car uses with Vistaprint for printing purposes too. Funny enough. Wow. Yeah. And we found that that probably cost us $500, to reinvest in just a new brochures, new cards, new printed baggies, and a new banner ultimately with, a larger quantities. So that you have to consider that, as well as I tried to do it when I was kind of lower on my inventory, so I could easily transition without losing too much money in printing purposes for rebranding. So
Sure. Now, on that transition, how did you handle the transition of rebranding with existing clients and customers? How did you communicate? How did you communicate that to them, so that they didn't feel lost or that the business had been sold or anything like that?
That was one of the things we considered when rebranding, which I was really hesitant on, because like I talked about, previously, was that you put a lot of time and effort that, what is it that you have to not hit somebody physically, but like, be in their eye, be in their eye X amount of times before, you kind of are remembered, or it's a remembered fact or whatever. And when you're driving around with your logo and your current or existing, clientele, you do worry that are they going to get confused or lost or whatever. So using that company, the crowdsource company that we use, we were able to get that on our social media, get them involved, number one. So they could be kind of excited for the process of, this is fun. I actually get an opinion to a degree, and which was exciting. And then two, we had email lists. So we were kind of letting them know when it did happen. We kind of had the old logo next to the new logo, kind of saying, same company, same management, rebranded for the new, it was 2019 for 2019. And so we made sure our clientele were understanding of that fact. When we had new clients or existing clients after each visit, we were dropping new business cards with the new logo on them. So they saw the new logo in person. We do printed magnets for some clients as well. So made sure we left a new printed magnet with the new logo on it as well. On our website, it kind of showed the old logo and the new logo for a while as well. So a multifaceted, process to make sure old clients and existing clients, or those or the potential clients, the ones that have kind of been watching you for a little bit but haven't signed on board yet, that they knew it was still you. So like our Facebook banner, I think at one point had the old version of the logo and the new version of the logo together. So they saw, hey, I remember that old logo. Oh, this is the new company. Luckily, we didn't change our name either. So the name kind of kept it, knowing that it was the same company. as well.
Sure. I mean, if you ever want to think about the power of brand recognition, just go down a cereal aisle whenever the Kellogg's or whoever changes the color or puts a new picture on their box. I'll walk up and down that aisle 4 or 5 times going, they don't stock this thing anymore. This isn't real.
Yeah.
And then only to have someone go, oh no, they changed the box last week. And I go, okay, whatever. So
when my 4-year-old can name recognize like branded cereals already, they have her really well trained.
Yes. No, absolutely. And so your process of slow and steady, we're going to put both of them out there. We're going to communicate a lot, and your idea of getting them involved and having them voted, I can't love that enough. I mean, that just sounds so cool.
It was something I didn't even think of until they offered the opportunity, and I was like, oh, that's genius. I love that. I was like, this would be a little bad potentially too, because what if they didn't get the one they wanted or whatever? So I thought about that as well as an intimidation piece of it. And then I just said, forget it. We're just going to go for it and make it a fun process and get that piece out there to them still and be in their eyes still, which was huge.
Somebody's listening to this and thinking, should I do this now or should I wait? What would you say about now being a good time to think about and starting that process of rebranding?
I saw a quote from somebody that I don't remember what it was, who it was from, but it was in a pet care industry site of some sort. And they shared the fact of, this is the best time to remake yourself because you may be on hiatus. Business may be closed down purposefully or required. And why not? You can kind of come out that phoenix in a way, come out of those ashes as a brand new opportunity, a brand new fresh start in a time that's been pretty crazy, obviously, during this whole process of COVID. And one, that's being a huge piece of it. And two, you have the time probably now too. But to actually take that mental capacity that instead of if you're one that's in the industry and walking the dogs and pet sitting the dogs and you have 13, 14 visits a day and you're out from 7 to 10 p.m., you don't have time and the mental capacity to think about this. Now you may have it. Now you still have a trauma-induced scenario obviously going on right now. So don't make drastic concepts right away. Still take that time. But when you're using a third-party company, whether it is a local mom-and-pop graphic designer or not, or a larger crowdsourced option, you're getting other people's opinions in it, which is huge too. But you have the time to, take this time and, catch up and do the things that you've been thinking of for whether it's been weeks, months, or years, So changing those logos, rebranding, looking at what you really want your business to be now and then the next X amount of years of changes, because this is probably not going to be the first time or the last time that this, stay-at-home shutdown thing happens to us realistically. So take that time to think about that, and take that time to update your SOPs, standard operating procedures, or, send cards to your clients thanking them, or, saying, hey, we miss you. We just sent custom text messages that we made on Canva, which is a free website or paid, depending on what level you use, of just saying, hey, we miss, bologna and cheese, with a cute graphic, and texted it to them, to our top 20 clients, again, to keep with our logo, everything's logoed, and sending it to them and getting responses back to them and taking that time to make sure your clients' rabies vaccines are updated, saying, hey, not thinking about now, but in the future too, don't forget your rabies vaccine needs to be scheduled when your vets are open to doing routine vaccines again. Updating, making sure you're taking cop on your gas mileage and your personal care, as well, and hiring. And if you're looking to hire, this is a great time to rebrand so you can have a great start to hiring. It's your first IC or your first employee, or if you're needing to rehire new staff or new ICs or whatever you do when the stay-at-home orders stop, and making sure you're getting the right people to apply for your company, and making sure that first image that you're putting out there for your new potential staff is the right one. Ultimately, redoing that website. So first thing before redoing a website, probably want to rebrand so you know what the direction of your website you want to go to, and taking that time to research. If you want to do a crowdsource, if you want to do your local mom and pop, graphic designers or companies that may be closer to you, and in taking time to schedule a grand reopening, whether you're brick and mortar or virtual. There's a handful of sites out there right now. I know there's a big pet care professional that has a website or Facebook group she just started that was like the 7-day pet business, COVID, something grand reopening page. Get on there. She's giving some great tips, on the next week of like things you can prep for to have a grand reopening. So we didn't fully close in our industry, for our business. We shut down dog walking because it was considered non-essential, but pet sitting was still considered essential. So when a client was unable, is away or something, or medically necessary. So, making sure we're planning a grand reopening virtually to say, hey, our business is fully open, up and running. We can restart those dog walking clients. We can, and try to get new clients in at this point in time, whether that's with video or printed material or, social media or YouTube or whatever you use in your business, and planning that with your new, hey, this is our new look, or that phoenix rising out of the ashes type vibe.
Yeah, because right now you mentioned we have time. If I know a lot of people start, they don't put a lot of thought into or a lot of effort into their logo and their branding because they just need to get something and get out the door and start working. And then they look up and it's been and it's been 5, it's been 10 years and maybe you've never really liked it but the amount of work and forethought and process involved in this, it's not inconsequential. And so it takes time. And now, if you've never liked the way the font was or anything like that, or the color or the figure that was put on there, taking the time right now to allow yourself some space. And as you mentioned, there's obviously a lot of trauma going on. So still breathing and dealing and working through that and not making massive drastic decisions.
Making sure your mental health is where it needs to be before you continue this pathway, for sure.
Yeah, because this is a big deal, and you don't want to be making big rash decisions if you're not mentally in a good space. And so making sure that that's there, and then allowing yourself to address these kind of things and be creative. And it still allows you to be creative and engaging and communicating with other people, and just pulls the whole thing together. When a lot of times right now we might not know exactly what to be doing or working on. And the idea of having a grand virtual reopening just speaks volumes to that. We are still here. We're not defeated. We're still here to provide service, and we're reopening not because not because of anything we did, but because of the circumstances. And we can celebrate that and make that a celebratory thing. And what better way to do that than being the phoenix rising up. So.
And you totally have the time to do it, right? In the sense of, okay, say in Florida right now, we still have easily till early May at minimum that we have a stay-at-home order for. The crowd design process that I did through Design Crowd took a week. Only a week. Like, from the time I put it on to the 100+ designs that came through to the final editing, it took 7 days. Of back and forth between me and the designer that I ended up using. And the number one thing is like, okay, where do I start? Like, how do I even know what type of logo that I want? I don't know. Right. Like, I'm not a graphic designer, right? Okay, go on Google pet sitting company in every other state except yours, and then start saving logos and ideas from those companies. So you can see, okay, you can be looking at 100 different companies and look at each logo. And if it attracts you for whatever reason, right click, save it, and say why you like it. Say the color, the style of it, the picture, whatever it is that you like, and do that for an hour or two when you're kind of watching a Disney Plus movie in the background too, or Netflixing and chilling with some Tiger King or whatever it may be. But doing that in the background and saving it. And then what will happen is after that 2 hours, you can then take the next day and look at all those logos that you saved and look for the consistency. What is one thing or two thing that keeps popping out between those logos that you've liked from all these other companies, and say, that's what I want in mine. That's the vibe I want. When I decided what kind of logo I wanted, the one that kept coming back to me was the logo and the picture intercombined, making a letter into a picture somehow. That really attracted me. It's artistically, aesthetically pleasing. I was like, I like that. I like that a lot. So that's why my first step was like, I want a letter transformed into a picture. And so what happened is when I put up idea thought processes on an idea board or a Pinterest board or whatever board you use, whether you print it off and put it on an actual cork board, is I saw that overall consistency of like, this is the look that I want mine to have. So, and knowing that's when I was able to hire a graphic designer, team, or individual, I knew that giving that to them, because pictures speak 1,000 words, right? Giving them those pictures is going to help them give me the best return on investment for the money I'm investing into them doing this job. So that first step was literally just looking at hundreds of companies, just Googling and looking at logos and saving what I liked. And then looking at it again and saying, what do I like about those things? And then dividing it into, oh, I really like these colors. I really find, so when I chose purple and yellow, purple is my favorite color. The opposite color of purple on the color wheel is yellow, which is actually my least favorite color, funny enough. And don't judge me. I'm not a yellow, bright, happy person. And I said, but, complementary on the color wheel. So looking at a color wheel then, and saying, okay, out of the main color I like, well, it's my favorite color. Or if it's a fear-free color, if you've done fear-free certifications, we'll talk about colors that, send out certain feelings. And then looking on the opposite of that color wheel to make sure those colors complement each other, to make sure you have a full compass, of multi, 2 to 3 colors in your designs usually. And then knowing what kind of vibe and feel that gives your clients and yourself and your staff. And then going from color, deciding what do you want in your logo? Do you want a picture of a deceased pet of yours or a current pet that that's what got you into the business? What's the story behind that, that logo, if you have one? I wanted happy pets. So a happy dog was really what I was going for, because dogs, okay, yes, putting a dog only kind of scared me, because I'm like, well, what about my cat? Like,
right.
A dog and, not a cat or a horse or a chicken or
parrot
whatever.
Or what else? Yeah.
Right. But if you look at your clientele, again, if you are a majority cat client, maybe you consider a cat, majority dog, clientele, consider a dog. Or you can do that, multi-pet encompassing logo as well, if that's something you're really passionate about. And thinking about that, when I was reaching out to designers, they said, what do you want in it? And I said, I lean towards things that may have, in our county, or on our city rather, swans are a big, the city has swans that they own. So swans are a huge thing in our town. So swans or Florida natural oaks or dogs or families, I kind of threw out all those concepts because I didn't want to be stuck on one thing, and maybe seeing what other designers created for me that I didn't think of. And so some did have that Florida natural oak tree. Some had swans integrated into it as well. Some had human, hands or a family with pets in it as well. And if you Google Atta Boy animal care design crowd, you'll be able to pop up our actual old job posting and see the hundreds of logos, the 100 plus logos that we got. So you can see an example, which is what I also did, is I looked at pet care design crowd and it popped up all the old jobs because they're open still on their website. So you can see what designs they got and what designs you were passionate about, because you can reach out to designers specifically and say, I really want you to design mine, that is an option as well. So kind of, again, going back to looking at others, looking at other professional logos and seeing what you like best, or what your team likes best, or your company likes best, and making sure you're going in that right direction. So looking at originals, then colors, and then what you actually want in the logo are the top 3 things I would say before starting to reach out to a graphic designer. You need to be able to verbalize and put in picture what you want back, or you're not going to get what you want, and you're going to be angry and you're going to be out money. So
right. Yeah. Two things we don't really want is to be angry and out of money. Right.
No.
Now, what I would like to have is to be able to direct people to a version of your old logo and your new one. And do you still have those posted, or would I be able to include those maybe in some show notes for people to view and see that transition?
I have the old logo for sure. I don't have it anywhere openly posted right now or anything, but I could easily hand that out to you. That shows the old logo and the original sketches. I think I even have somewhere too, and then the new logo as well.
Right.
Yeah, not a problem.
I think that'd be beneficial for people to see that transition, and then I'll include a couple links to things that you've been talking about, including a link to go see that design on Design Crowd that you mentioned. Sure. And if people are feeling like they want to do this and they're very interested and maybe they have some questions about that process or want some advice, how could they reach out to you and have you maybe coach them through that process or give them some encouragement along the way?
I don't mind at all. So I actually started a local pet professionals Facebook group, and for just that, sharing amongst the pet care industry, I think is huge. I always say comrades, not competition.
Absolutely.
And yeah, exactly. There's so many dogs, we can't take care of all of them. I always say as well, we have to share the wealth. And so I always think that's huge. So yeah, you can contact me through our main company website or email, which is info@attaboyanimalcare.com. You can find me on Facebook personally if you're interested, which is Amber Van Denzen. Only 2 of us in the entire United States. I'm the older one. And you'll find me there. And feel free to, you could easily, private messages on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube as well. That's not a problem as well. Those are all options. And I have an assistant, but she'll push them out to me when I just speak to you directly. Not a problem at all.
Wonderful. Well, Amber, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. There's a lot to consider and a lot goes into this, but it's so, as you mentioned, so worth it and so freeing, and it just completely changes the atmosphere of your company and your outlook. And so I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing and giving encouragement through those experiences and some helpful tips and pointers for people to get started, because it's, as you mentioned, it's a great time to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely take the time that you have. Eat some cookie dough, watch some Netflix, and then rebrand. That's my goals for everyone that needs it. So cookie dough, Netflix, and rebranding. There we go.
It's a three-step process right there.
There we go. Okay. Yep, exactly. Just like finding the logo, finding your colors, and finding your picture that you want. So
yes,
3 for 3.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, again, Amber, I really appreciate you coming on today, and I wish you all the best, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks. I appreciate it, Colin.
I hope that got all of your creative juices flowing, thinking about what your design currently is and maybe what it could be. If you decide that you want to rebrand and maybe want to kick around some ideas, join our Sitters Confessional group on Facebook. We'd love to see what you're thinking about, and other people I know would give some great feedback as well. As we all look to reopen and celebrate that, rebranding might be a wonderful tool to go along with that. To come out of this with a new look, with new ideas, with a new perspective and outlook on just where your business can and should be going. Check out our website, petsitterconfessional.com, for many links that Amber discussed here, including being able to see her before and after logo design. You can also call us, and I promised Megan I'd get this memorized, so let's see how I do. 636-364-8260. Okay, if I'm honest, I was reading that from my notes, but there we go. Megan and I will be back on Monday with a new episode of Kitchen Confessions. Have a great weekend.